Alright, good morning everyone. I want to talk about some of the things people have been missing about the upcoming update that's coming out in like 3 hours. Um, I've seen a ton of YouTubers, streamers, people in the forums talking about all these things that they think are going to happen or that have happened that didn't happen or just weird stuff. So this video is just going to start with me setting the record straight as to what is exactly happening, and I'm going to end with some of my thoughts on the next update. Alright, before we get into that, I want to talk about the gameplay in the background. It's a 35 kill, 7.0 KD salvage game. It is from a long time ago though. It's from like 2 months prior to Rise of Iron. You can probably already tell that by the damage numbers. But I haven't had time to get new footage, and I didn't want to just trash this footage because I never ended up using it. So, bear with me. I hope you enjoy the gameplay. But with that out of the way, let's get into the new update. So the new update comes out in a few hours. We're gonna start with auto rifles. Everyone that I've seen in forums and everyone that was at the reveal stream when I watched it seems to think that Stros regime and that archetype of auto rifles is gonna become very powerful, but unfortunately, it's just not gonna happen. Auto rifles only got a minor buff to their impact. Well, not even their impact, but their critical hit damage. And if you currently have tried out a max impact auto rifle, which is what they used, with focus fire, you'll note that it deals 34 damage to the head, and during the reveal stream, it was dealing 35 damage to the head. They increased the impact, or the damage, that auto rifles deal to the head by 1. It is such a minor increase, it doesn't change the shots to kill under any circumstances. Not the shots to kill if you get like 2 body shots and 4 headshots. It doesn't matter. It's a 6-shot kill, or like I think if it's all body shots, somewhere around an 8 or 9-shot kill. But yeah, nothing truly changed when it came to auto rifles. A lot of people thought, oh, this is gonna make a huge change, because in the reveal stream it looked like it was dealing a lot of damage and killing really quickly, because auto rifles kind of do. They're a what I would consider a B class or B tier weapon. They're not, quite as good as the meta, but they're one step below the meta, so they can still compete just fine. It's just that they're not going to be as strong. So, with that said, basically, I wanted to point out that a lot of people seem to think autos are going to become the next meta, but I don't see it happening, because the only true buff they receive that's going to be noticeable is the inner accuracy increase. With that out of the way, pulse rifles are another thing I see a lot of people confusing. Give me a second here. So, basically, I've seen a lot of people mentioning Red Death and Hopscotch. Neither of those weapons are actually going to receive any buff in any way. And basically, they're just not gonna be good. They're not getting any better than they are now, and they're not currently better than other weapons in their range class. So I think a good way to think about weapons and their power level is think about it as there's 3 different range classes: close, medium, and long range. And at close range, you have hand cannons and auto rifles, right? So that's one class, or range class, right? And hand cannons are constantly beating out auto rifles, which just means auto rifles are a B tier weapon, or they're a, basically just a worse weapon. And if you can't beat out the other weapons in your range class, then there's no way you're going to beat out the other weapons in their respective range classes. Basically, a pulse rifle, if it can't beat out a scout rifle, which is in its range class, then how can it ever expect to beat out a hand cannon in close range, right? That's kind of, I know that probably sounds a little awkward, but that is realistically the best way to picture whether or not a weapon will be more powerful, right? Unless it receives a buff, if it's not beating out the other weapons within its range class, then it's not going to be that powerful. Which is kind of why I think auto rifles will not be as good, because hand cannons are just better. It's not that auto rifles are bad, it's just that they're not better than the other weapons of their range class. Getting back on track though, pulse rifles are the only ones receiving a buff are the max impact, and that is spare change 0.25. We have no exotics of the max impact archetype for auto rifles. So Red Death, Hopscotch, not gonna matter. No buffs, nothing. Spare change 0.25 and the Vanguard pulse rifle getting buffed. And honestly, the buff to them is so minimal, I wouldn't expect them to be that used much more often. The only reason I would expect to see an increase in the amount of pulse rifles or max impact pulse rifles you see is because Clever Dragon won't exist to compete with them. So they'll have much better potential damage because they won't have to compete with another pulse rifle. That being said, I do think scout rifles like the Mida Multi-Tool and Jade Rabbit will still beat out max impact pulse rifles. So I think they will turn into a B tier weapon as they are now. Another thing to talk about is Clever Dragon. I have seen nobody talking about how Clever Dragon is still going to be useful, which it is. It absolutely is. The true nerfs we saw to Clever Dragon were a 1 frame change in the rate of fire and a slight magazine decrease, which for a lot of people the magazine decrease won't matter. As long as if you're not running braced frame on your Clever Dragon right now, you will not notice an issue with the magazine size. But if you are, then just I would say try and swap perks. If you have what I've noticed is that if you have counterbalance, you don't need braced frame. You can use counterbalance alone is a pretty heavy enough stability perk, at least from the testing I've done, to still make for a perfectly sufficient weapon, basically. So yeah, the 1 frame difference, not gonna do anything. It's still gonna kill faster than a Hawksaw, and it's still gonna have the potential to kill in the same amount of bursts as a Hawksaw. So realistically, sadly, Clever Dragon is still going to be a strong part of the meta. I know a lot of people are mentioning the high cal nerf and the flinch nerf, but given that the current god roll, or at least what I've heard and what I've seen people preferring for a roll, is perfect balance, high cal, counterbalance, or braced frame counterbalance. And honestly, if you have high cal on your Clever right now, it's still going to flinch. Flinch isn't going away from the weapon. So for me, I have a perfect balance high cal counterbalance roll. I don't use it that often, but that roll is still going to be a top tier weapon. Now, whether it will be considered a B tier and sit kind of where auto rifles are right now, or where scout rifles like the Mida are right now, or will still be an A tier exotic, I don't know. I really couldn't say. But I definitely think Clever Dragons will still be very useful, and definitely Grasp of Malix will be just as useful. Honestly, I would expect to see still see a lot of those weapons running in the Crucible, especially with people who run shotguns, just because a big part of the Clever Dragon and that archetype of pulse rifle is they're good at multiple ranges. And with the removal of special ammo, we're gonna need more weapons that cover multiple ranges, because when you use a weapon like the Last Word, you don't have the ability to kill at medium to long range. So you need a special weapon to kind of cover those ranges that you can't with your primary, which is why what I'll call, general use primaries, kind of like scout rifles that are like the Mida, where they can be used in multiple circumstances. They're not just good at long range or short range, they're good at long, medium, and can do well at short range if you land your shots. Those weapons are going to become more valuable as special ammo becomes less common. Alright, so I think that's all the mistakes I've noticed. That's all the things I've noticed people saying that I just, based off the facts we know, I just don't see being happening. With that said, a few thoughts I have on the meta, or the changes. I wasn't happy with what they talked about with special ammo or the shotgun nerf. I main a sniper. All the footage you see with me is definitely, it's obvious I main a sniper. So the changes they made, I wasn't super happy about. But even with that, I still think that overall, I'm happy to see a change. Any sort of change. Like, literally any change makes me happy. So, yeah, I think overall, even though it's gonna kind of suck that we don't have special ammo, it stinks that they nerfed shotguns when they could have been fine without it, I still think that for a short period of time this will be fun. It'll be something new to try out. I am excited to see more primary battles. Even though we're not getting them in the way I wanted to just by having stronger primaries, I'm very excited to see more primary battles. A final note I'd like to make. I was really upset with the way this balance and stream went. So I had a lot of issues. The first one being, they didn't change anything. I think if you really look at what they've done, the meta will not shift that much. Hand cannons will remain at the top, max impact pulse rifles will still be a huge factor, and honestly, auto rifles just aren't going to be able to compete with hand cannons, so I don't think they're going to be considered a top tier weapon. So yeah, I was a little frustrated with the way this update went, but that's all the time I have today. I want to thank you guys if you stayed till the end of the video. I'll be streaming the update for a good portion today. You can come check that out. Link in the description. I'll see you guys next time.